Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.
Can you tell the difference? The difference in what, Neil? What are you talking about? This. Surely you can hear it. No. It's French. French grass. Grass de France. In the south of France, near the Pyrenees. Neil, you can't be serious. Well, I'm serious about where I am, but no, you should be able to tell the difference in the grass sound. I thought maybe we'd have a bit more bird song, and then maybe you could tell by the accents, but nothing. Let's get an opening picture for you from the Photowalk. In the distance, oh, what a beautiful view. In the distance, there's another fortified walled village stroke town. Not sure which one that is. I know that's the Black Mountains ahead of me. So let me get an opening picture from a scrapbook. Here we go. Shutter speed 320 f5, ISO 160. It's a bit overcast. The sky, we had a lovely blue one yesterday. Blue sky, puffy clouds, dramatic puffy clouds. But today, just a bit grey. But there we go. An opening picture from my Photowalk with this beautiful, sprawling vista ahead of me.
The foreword.
Yes, I'm in France this week making a Photowalk following my invite to photograph at a chateau. And I couldn't resist bringing you with me. You're in my suitcase. Guest-wise, straight out the traps, there isn't an interviewee as such, a dedicated photographer interviewee with me and you and I and you and me as we walk together. Instead, with me, and by extension us, is my host and historian from Fanzhou. Though that's not his official title in life. It'll be David Pride, who I walk with in the wonderful village of Fanzhou, where I spent part of my week, and the historic Carcassonne. Just making a few pictures, having a chat about escaping to a different country, upping des bâtons with the silent S, as they may say here, and finding life with a different pace. However, in between the letters you've sent in and my chatettes, to use a little Del Boy franglais, some slightly longer than usual inspirational clips from former guests today, as I do still want to send you photographic love from the seats of learning that are, or moreover who are, the guests featured on this show here. So yes, this week's Photowalk is in France, though fortunately for you and anyone who is lucky enough to live in this fantastic country, the language I shall speak will most certainly be English. Otherwise, God only knows what we'll end up eating from Le Menu. Stories of life told by photographers, and today those stories come from a variety of former guests, ranking the photographer provocateur, if you will. Daniel Milner, Simon Baxter, the man behind Vero you heard from last week, Ayman Hariri, and some to come, including the art duo Alexandrov Klum, who are making pictures and art to enthuse why we need to love our planet just that little bit more, and you with your letters and posts. It's a unique, special kind of podcast made from the letters you send in and the thoughts that you have about making pictures, whatever and whoever you make them for, whether you're a full-time pro or somebody who likes to, well, collect life in whatever box you carry, be that a mirrorless, a DSLR, your mum's Kodak Instamatic, or the new iPhone 14 Pro, you lucky thing. It's not a tech show, and you won't feel daft if there's bits of history missing from your knowledge about photography, such as, being French for a moment, since this show is being recorded in France, knowing who Joseph Nicephore Niepce was, who positioned at the back of a camera obscura sheets of silver swords-coated paper known to blacken with daylight. Yes, this clever sausage is highly considered to have invented photography in May 1816, when he produced the first image of nature, a view from a window. Of course, the Fox Talbot fans will now be shouting "Sacre bleu!" It was Talbot, or the Degueur fans will all be casting their 183-year-old Beaujolais across the room right now. No, this is a show about how making pictures makes you feel, what it does for us and you and others around us. And there are billions of people, 6.6 billion at last count, who feel the same way around the world, who have something they can make a picture with. So we're not walking alone. In the mailbag today, the first mention of Christmas, but for good reason. A hike and a half to show off the Photowalk flask up a mountain, contrasty pictures you can fall right into. Remembering the queue, the country where the train company takes you on a photo walk, printing pictures, folklore, making pictures of things you don't usually, countries you've never heard of, let alone photographed in, and more on social media. So, lots to talk about today. Shall we walk then? Checklist out. It's going to be, well, I'll attempt it in French, or sort of French, as it's me. Café Garibaldi en balai. Oui. Boots sur un lacet. Oui. Pantalon de maché sur. Oui. Pile de rechange. Oh, oui. Carte mémoire ou film de rechange. Oui. Urite dans. Is that right? Oui. Bouchon d'objectif en lèvres. Oui. Okay. Marchons. My walk through the valley. Oh, that's nice. French swallows. Neil, you're going to have to drop this French thing sooner or later, okay? They're swallows. All right. Yes, I'm walking alongside a road. I'm going to try and lose that road. I mean, one of the fantastic things about France, as I've learned, is you can, you can't walk anywhere you like. There are paths that say privé, you know, there are private paths and places where you're not really supposed to walk. But on the whole, they seem fairly open. You can, you find a farm path, you walk up it, nobody's going to say, "Oi, you, get off my land!" You can find interesting places to walk without it troubling too many yokels. Shall I tell you what I've been photographing with on my photo walks in France? You could probably tell by the shutter sound right at the start. Would it be your Fujifilm X100V you bought from mpb.com, Neil? Oh, how did you guess? Absolutement, yes. I've learned, by the way, that you just need to put more at the end of my words, and I sound perfectly French. Well, I like to think so, at any rate. I suspect everybody around here is humouring me to an extent, except at the toll booths. Hold on, MPB, just for a moment. Let me tell you about the toll booths. Just in case you are planning a holiday in this wonderful country anytime soon. This is one thing, if you're driving across France, you might be wise to learn before you go. Now, there's a lot of toll booths. If you take the motorways, there's a lot of toll roads. And some are, well, I don't know, are they moderately priced? It's just the way it works over here. But when you draw up, if you're driving a right-hand drive car, if you haven't hired your car, you have the dance to go round to collect your ticket, because the first booth you pull up to is the one that pushes out the ticket in the left-hand ticket slot. So you take your ticket, you get out the car, run round, pick your ticket, run back round again, sit down, put your seatbelt on, whoosh, and you're away. And then, well, depending upon how soon you're coming off that motorway, or maybe you're doing a long part of the route, then you get to the next booths, and you stop, you take off your seatbelt, you run round, you go to the ticket machine, you put your ticket in. This time you have to also put your card. If it's contactless, that's much easier. You put your card against the machine. Before you know it, somebody's hooted you. Usually, that's what I've been finding, because having to get out and do the run of shame around a right-hand drive vehicle, if you're on your own, obviously, if you've got somebody with you, it's much easier. I found a certain level, let's just say, of impatience as I've been travelling across France. I saw a Renault 4, actually, in the first town where I was staying, and I did think, see, I know it's a bit cliche, the Renault 4, because it's a very typical kind of classic French car, but I do love them. And it was red, and I thought, I shall dump Kia here, and I should just use a Renault 4 for the rest of the journey. I'll fit in. Oh, I heard that. No, don't worry, car. You're okay. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that in case you're planning to take a holiday at any stage in the near or distant future to France, and you're going to use your car. Back to my camera focused. See what I did there? Thoughts? If you are thinking about buying new kit at the moment, or at least new to you, like the Fujifilm 100V, which I've just talked about, X100V, I'd like you to stop for a moment and consider joining the circular economy and buying quality used camera kit from those wonderful people at mpb.com. You'll be joining the circular economy, getting the advantage of great price for amazing inspected gear. And if you are buying, you get a guarantee. So 3 reasons for choosing to buy from mpb.com. Come on, Neil. Hang on, you mentioned a Renault 4. Think of a fourth. Oh, okay. Fourth reason. A raison de quatre. All right, packaging. There we go. See? Packaging. Sustainability is very important. We talk about sustainability often with regard to mpb.com, don't we? It's more important than ever in this world. Let me talk about packaging, because when your stuff arrives from MPB, you will find sustainable packaging. No bubbles, 0 bubbles. I'm not talking champagne. I'm talking 0 bubbles, 0 bubble wrap, pas de wrap. So there we go. 4 reasons. mpb.com is the place to shop for quality used camera kit if you're in America, the UK, or where I am as I say these words, in Europe. Right, first letter. This one is from Per Berghaug. Hi Neil, hope you're well and that the heat wave that's visited your islands recently hasn't taken too much of a toll on you. That seems like a long time ago now. I've had your letter for a good month and a bit or so, or more. No, it seems like a distant memory. It really does, Per. It does. We're past the heat wave now. It's socks and sandals away for another year. We're into winter. Out come the Christmas jumpers soon. The ones with the LED flashing lights on Rudolph's nose. Sorry to mention the C word so early. On into what? Well, it's not quite winter yet. It's autumn, isn't it? But do you know, I was talking about this with a friend. You know those houses that you see lit up every single year with Christmas lights? Well, if you think about it, well, the cost of power, etc. I know, first world problems, but I wonder how many houses we're going to see covered in Christmas LED lights this year. Just a thought. Anyway, Per, back to you. Here in Norway land, he says, we haven't had much in the way of summer temperatures, I'm sorry to say, though 40 degrees would probably have been too much for us lot anyway. Truth be told, I have a bit of a bad conscience. The much coveted flask arrived a little while ago, and I haven't written to say thank you. Yes, the flasks. We do occasionally send out some flasks. Now, you, of course, will have had the Photography Daily one, and then we rebranded the show. So yeah, I've still got a stack of PD ones. So if you want a PD one, write with a letter with a good reason why, and I'll send one to you wherever you are in the world. But I do have the Photowalk ones as well to give away to entertain. Well, they're all entertaining letters, but you know, sometimes one catches your attention and you think, oh, I'll just whisk you a hot or cold flask so that when you're on your photo walks, you can take along your soup or your tea or your coffee or whatever you have with you. But in my defense, says Per, I had a plan. I thought it fitting to make some photographs to accompany the thank you letter. And what better way to say thank you than bring the flask to one of our magnificent Norwegian mountain peaks. So that's what I've done. My son-in-law and I hiked about 10 kilometres a few days ago to the summit of Grindane, which is a mountain here in the Valdres region of Norway land. It stands 1,734 metres above sea level. The ascent is quite steep, and we kept a brisk pace. After hiking about 2.5 kilometres and ascending 600 metres or so, we reached the top. Weather was nice, with some clouds and haze and a steady breeze, which incidentally was a leftover of your heat wave, according to the meteorologists in these parts. Anyway, enclosed you'll find some pictures taken at the summit. The show flask has been properly documented. I'm holding it to show you at the top of the mountain. All the best, Per Berghaug. Well, yes, Per, thank you so much. I like it. That's a creative way of saying thank you for the show flask that was sent to you. You're at the top of a mountain. Per is the one, if you go to the show page today, Per is the one holding the flask, and the other guy is the son-in-law. So, yes, thank you so much for sending that in, and I'm glad you've received the flask. We have been sending out some more recently. I did wait a little bit to send out the newer design ones, but as I say, maybe the PD one is some sort of collector's item. Don't build your part, Neil. All right. So let's take some inspiration, shall we? Coming up soon, I shall be talking to a husband and wife duo from Swedenland. Not so far away from you, Per. Although they are now, because they're based in Spain. And they make pictures that talk about the way that we live in harmony, or not so harmoniously, equally, with nature. And I thought you might like to hear, let's have a French word, a soupçon. Those French words are creeping in, a soupçon of my conversation with them. They make pictures, but they also deal in sound to tell the story of our planet. So here's Matthias and Aris, who together form the artist duo Alexandrov Klum, and they'll be on the show very soon, and we're getting a sneak preview.
I think that we all know, most of us know, our predicament, the challenges we're facing or that we're in the midst of, but dystopia and misanthropia is not necessarily the answer. I think we have one foot in the reality, but also we have another foot in the beauty, but also the dreamlike beauty, because we are quite often portraying the world. It's sort of a dreamlike state that we produce. It's not necessarily documentary. It's not necessarily just talking about what we scientifically can prove and that we know, but what we can sense. Because there's a difference. You can talk to the greatest, scientists on the planet. They will always say, yeah, this is what we know and this is what we don't necessarily know. And we love our art to be some kind of a reminder of our own vulnerability, how small we are. And yet we have this incredible power to destroy, but we also have the great ability to help once we connect our clever human mind with our emotional human heart. So we hope that our art can also inspire that notion of, the humility for life, in a sense.
Where do you choose where to make your stories? What do you choose when you choose to make a story of X? Who is making that decision? Is it a commercially driven decision by somebody that commissions you? Because I know you do commission work. Or is it something that you want to put on that feels right for you?
Well, most of the time we work in long-term projects, as the project we've been making in Sweden right now, that's called The Search of the Soul of the Forest. That's not really only a Swedish project. It has to do with searching for some kind of essence in nature, when in nature, but also trying to mystify the way we're looking upon nature. So, of course, now we had an exhibition in Sweden, and that was in a castle called Läckö Slott. So there we worked very site-specific with these old, beautiful rooms where you can't do much with actually changing that room, but we try to integrate the forest into those rooms instead. And that's, of course, very site-specific, and that's a project we've been working on since 2016 and that we continue working on.
Yeah, and I think normally we try to stay true to the core. We have a joint belief that we want to live. Our art should reflect both our mindsets when it comes to conservation, when it comes to philosophy, when it comes to how to have a lesser footprint on this earth. And so sometimes when we are approached by a foundation or by an art buyer or an institution, we like, for most of us working with culture, you can always try to say, if they want something specific, you might say, yeah, that sounds great, thanks for asking, but we would love to do it this way instead. So we always try to tweak it in one way or another so that it actually stays true to our beliefs in our core, and that's all about authenticity and quality to us.
The artist duo Matthias and Iris, or Alexander of Klum to call them by their recognised title, will be on the show soon, talking about their brand of photographic art, which brings us closer to nature, helps us to understand it, be enveloped by it or in it, and look to protect it. During the week, I've stayed in various locations, David Pride being a friend and family member who gave safe refuge to a cherry red Kia bearing a UK Target sticker and its owner, i.e. me, and I wanted to share a little of the history of this wonderful place in which David lives and where I was staying, a beautiful village called Fanjeau, very typically and architecturally French, that is. Not so much a stone's throw, but certainly a thrown glance in direction of the Pyrenees. We've taken an early morning walk out, and actually I shall be... If you can hear the whining in the background, by the way, that's not Barney, that's Astra, who really wants to go on a walk, who's being made to do a history tour right now, which she's not entirely delighted about. But we are at the top of a hill in Fanjeau, which is where where I've come for the second part of my French week, and we're with some metalwork statues, or an art installation would probably be more accurate. Depicting what, David?
Well, what we have here is a meeting between a knight, a religious leader from the Roman Catholic faith, and also a member of the Cathar so-called heretic faith, which was very powerful in this region back in the 12th century, I guess. And they're having a discussion about the relative merits of each other's position. And the visitor is invited to sit on the bench next to the Cathar, who is posed pensively listening to the argument between the knight and the representative of the Roman Catholic Church and others, as they seek to persuade one another of the relative worth of their different views.
So the different faiths were, there was Cathar and there was Catholic. There were three others, weren't there? But we're concentrating on those two.
Yes, those are the two that we kind of most thinking about when we think of this region of France. And the Cathars were well established here in the 12th century, 13th century, and eventually driven out by various campaigns to obliterate their view of religion, and so-called crusades, the Albigeois crusades. And they retreated to various chateaux on the hill around here and fortified castles around here. But they were basically inheriting them. They didn't actually build them. They just populated them in their time of need. Yeah. And eventually they were wiped out as a belief system, albeit the story goes that there are still vestigial remains of Catharism in the community today.
Here today in Fanjeau?
So they say.
I don't really understand what Catharism is. I have a handle on the Catholic faith, of course. The word heretic is mentioned in association with it, but I don't really understand what their faith is, or was, or is still.
Well, they were a very sort of ascetic group. They lived very simply and almost communally, and believed that they were, I guess, helping one another through life today, which they construed as hell.
Oh, so we're living in hell now?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and one had to die to pass into heaven. And now I've told you all that I know, really, without going back to my history book. But it put them at odds with the Roman Catholic Church, who was taking a different view of what, how to interpret the Bible.
And of course, the Catholic Church here are armed with knights who had a different persuasive method, I would have thought, to a man in cloth.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in fact, the Crusades were very quickly followed by the Inquisition. And, from a historical perspective, that was a very difficult time, wherever it sort of found itself, with, almost neighbour turning on neighbour, family member turning on family member. And in a bizarre way, it sort of still exists in some particularly Latin countries today, where you still have that principle of denunciation, where you can go and denounce a neighbour for some error you think he or she has done.
That's very much alive in Spain, isn't it? Denunciations.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very alive
Yeah.
in Spain. Yeah, and you can't do much even around here in progressing anything without lodging a formal complaint.
Right.
It's still very much part of the process in law here that if you are concerned about something that's gone wrong and you want to get it fixed, almost inevitably you have to lodge a formal complaint with the police.
And what happens to all these lodged formal complaints? Is there a monthly hearing?
I have no idea.
No, you've not had one against you yet.
No, I had to do one
Right.
when somebody keyed my car. I contacted the insurance company to get it repaired, and I said, yes, it's covered in your policy, you can get it repaired. There is obviously a surcharge you have to pay. I said, that's fine, I'll do it, let's get it done. And they said, have you been to the police? I said, well, no, why would I go to the police? You have to lodge a formal complaint against persons unknown, and then the police have to register it, and they'll give you a form, and then you send that to us, and then we can process the claim and decide whether we're going to cover it or not.
Yeah.
Anything like that as a degree of formality here that stretches way back, both to Napoleon and beyond in history, further back.
In front of us, David, this sprawling, beautiful vista that is now. I can't get my bearings. Are we looking in the distance toward the Black Mountains, or?
Yes, we're looking north to the Black Mountains, so-called, and go up over 1,000 metres.
Wow.
And it's the southern tip geologically of the Massif Central, which dominates a lot of central France.
Yeah.
And it creates this valley between us and the start of the Pyrenees. And we're sort of in the foothills-ish area of the Pyrenees here at about 350 metres. But from us, as you go south, I suppose it's about 50 kilometres to the Pyrenees as they really start to get big. And so we're on a chain of hills overlooking the valley to the north and what amounts to the foothills to the south leading up to the Pyrenees. And apparently from this view, although not today, we can see 5 different French departments. We're standing in the Aude, and there's the Lot and the Garonne, the Hérault, there's the Ariège to the south, there is Pyrénées Oriental to the east, and there must be another, but I can't remember what it is.
Departments being what? Shires, counties?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or states if you're in a country that calls them states. Yeah, so it is the regional authority.
And in front of us right here is and I think they still teach from it, a convent, isn't there?
Yes, it's a private school run by the nuns belonging to the Dominican order, and it's in the same sort of terrain really as the Dominican monastery that was formed for the nuns around the 1200s.
Yeah.
And so called because the spot we're standing on is where a preacher by the name of Dominic Guzman figured that he received the word of the Lord through repeated lightning strikes.
Oh, from where we're standing now, this is where he saw those lightning strikes.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was encouraged there to set up a small group of women to lead a counter-preaching campaign to the Cathars and the Cathar belief system. So it was originally started with women. It's why the monastery at the bottom of the hill is all nuns. And some years later, there was a small group founded with preaching brothers, so men, and they are on the hill, and they have some old properties up here, including an old church that are part of the Dominican sort of movement as well. Mm-hmm. And they have a larger monastery in the country behind us some way away. So it is an area gently dominated by the Dominicans, very low profile, but of significant influence on, I think, the people here and us. And it's always a joy to see them out and about and to talk with them. And to engage in conversation. And even I used to dance with one Dominican nun, in a local dancing group.
Is that permitted?
Obviously, yes. She was a sister, but not a habit-wearing sister. And yes, she joined in our dancing group and was very lively. I went to dinner. A group of us were invited to dinner to celebrate her kind of reconfirmation in the faith.
Right.
It was lovely.
No dancing at that event.
No, just jocularity
Yes.
and good food. But no, it's really lovely, and it does give a sense of time, your length of time to the community.
Yeah.
You know, you do get a sense of deep history here, which is lovely. I mean, and as we're talking, just off to the east in the fields below us, they've discovered the remains of originally a pottery, and then quite close next to it they found a kiln, but also they think it was also a forge, and this predates even that, so very ancient times. We were on some route that supplied at least pots, if not ironware, through the region, and that's an archaeological dig that is ongoing every summer. And interestingly, at the end of the summer, the farmer covers it over and grows his crops on it for the next year. And then at the end of the harvest, he digs it up again and the archaeologists come back.
I can't imagine anywhere else where that would happen like that.
Well, it protects it very well. It means you don't have to police the area.
No, that's true. Right, let's give Astra a little walk, otherwise this rain's going to catch us up. She's very keen now to get to the fields. There's lots of metal art installations in this village, and one that we're coming up to now. I understand that was some sort of radiator. It's not a radiator like I would imagine. I have to take a picture of it. Hold on, because I need to put this on the show page so that you understand what we're about to talk about. So this was a radiator, yes?
It was clearly something for large-scale manufacturing control, and it's been remodeled to represent the machines of war reading the sign around it.
No, this is not the explosive radiator then.
It is. Yeah. There was an explosion in South Toulouse that wiped out a factory and a large area around the factory, and I'm sure with loss of life. And this is just a piece that has been recovered from that period, that an artist has worked on and modelled to create something awesome to represent the negative power of war and how it can wipe out humanity, as it did when the explosion occurred in Toulouse.
So this is about, what would you say, 20 feet high, about 5 feet wide. It's if it was some form of cylindrical, if it was some sort of, it has pipes coming out of it as if the hot water would have come out or in through those inlets and outlets. It's on some sort of train track here. So this was if this was a heating implement, it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it has I don't know, a light at the back and two at the front. They could be eyes, I don't know. But it's described as a machine of war on the sign, and it erases everything in its way and transforms the countryside and the people. And here it's being linked to the Albi Genois crusade against the Cathars. But I think it's probably symbolic of a bigger sense of the destructive power of machines, both on the landscape and humanity.
It's damaged. I don't know how much of that is the artist doing it, but it's damaged. I wonder if that was damaged via the explosion.
I quite think quite possibly, yeah.
La Croisade.
The crusade.
Not something you can eat.
No.
I'm thinking of the wrong croix. It's the Photowalk show, driven and made by the letters that you send in. If you've been on a Photowalk anywhere in the world, then do please send me the photographs, 2,000 pixels wide, please, and your words to tell us where you've been, the adventure that you've been on, or if you have any thoughts about photography and why photography is so important, so precious to you, what it does for you, as we say at the start of the show, the mental health benefits. We talk about that so often on this program as we walk these paths together. Send your emails to stories@photowalk.com. photowalk.show. Stories, plural that is, stories at photowalk.show. And your pictures, if you can send them 2,000 pixels wide, if you're armed with that sort of knowledge to do so. Otherwise, we transfer or Dropbox the full-size ones to me, and I'll cut them down to size so they can be shown on the show page. If you're sending them from your smartphone, just best quality. Simples, as those creatures say on that advert. Right, a couple of quick fire letters, then one taken from an experience that touched so many people to make the most extraordinary photo stories and pilgrimages over the last couple of weeks. Definitely. First up, an extra miler, as we call our wondrous patrons now, Patrick Britschke, who managed to find proof that the world's #1 cookie or biscuit, depending upon where you come from, and the biscuit, the cookie that powers this show, is also the name of a railway station in Italy. Complete in-joke for those who are new around these parts, but you'll understand it if you go to the show page today, which is linked to in the podcast player app you're listening to this show on right now. So thanks, Patrick. You are an eagle-eyed extra miler, you, even when you're travelling from Switzerland land to Italy land, which is where you must have been for this particular picture. Steve Anker, thank you for your letter, with a picture that will be, yes, on the show page as well. Neil, I recently had a break in Cambridge with friends to see Alabama 3 perform. I turned one of the days into a photo walk, and despite the harshness of the midday light, I was very pleased with this particular shot of Trinity Lane, where the famous Trinity College is sited. I deliberately only took a smaller style camera with me. In this case, it was the Fuji X30. By the way, this is not the Fuji Cast, although that's the other podcast I present with my reprobate buddy Mullins. Try saying that quickly 3 times. But other flavours are available. But the Fuji does get a mention. I mean, I'm using my X100V. Love it. It's a smaller sensor camera. And I rate that as definitely my travel companion, not just my walkabout camera. That is my travel companion. Anyway, says Steve, please keep the podcast going. Simultaneously, it's relaxing, inspiring, and restores my faith in the goodness of humanity. Blimey. That's a tall order. Best regards, Steve Anker. A couple of things, Steve. It's the letters and words that inspire around these parts. Without you, it will be an empty vessel of... what's the antonym to inspiration? An empty vessel of... politician? No, don't be like that. Oh, I don't know. You started it, Neil. Secondly, I'm pulling this from the brink now, rather quickly. Your picture in Cambridge, fabulous. You saw the sheer... I love pictures of these high contrast pictures in usually very, very sunny days where you see the top of the building and across it, either diagonally or maybe horizontally, sometimes vertically, you see this sort of the building going from, you know, the illuminated part of the building that's exposed correctly into total darkness. I find those so mysterious, and you've made it really sing where the building falls to absolute darkness. So well done. And this is another one of those you need to see this on the show page moments. And then here is a letter from Jeff Dunham, which was in response to episode 335 a couple of weeks ago on the Monday, which was the date of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. It was a short episode on that Monday, and we replaced the assignments show with some thoughts about that particular day. And I recounted the story of pictures made of the Queen many years ago by the father of one of our listeners, and we had words from an interview with Rankin, the portrait photographer, the trailblazing photographer who I chatted to earlier this year, where he recounted his memories of photographing, wow, I think you can safely say the most photographed woman in the world. So from Jeff Dunham, hi Neil, thanks for the shows. Monday's episode 335, titled The Queen, gave me pause for thought and help me to continue to coalesce my thoughts and feelings about the events of the last few weeks. A lot has been written elsewhere about how we may be using this momentous event to process feelings of grief following the passing of colleagues or acquaintances, friends and family over the last couple of years. And I'm using it to revisit the loss of my mother in 2005, as well as PTSD from childhood and sadly a more recent professional experience. Queuing to be in such proximity to Her Royal Highness would have been a bit too close for comfort. So in order to protect myself, I kept the really intense experiences at a distance. Part of that was taking the attached pictures of the queue. It's simply been called the queue, hasn't it? On Sunday the 18th. I've not felt a sense of comradeship like this for many, many years. There was mourning, there was laughter, there was sadness, there was joy, and there was even an entrepreneurial enterprise. It was truly inspiring. Keep up the good work, from Jeff. Thank you for your mail, Jeff, and I know for those who went to London to photograph what has become, I suppose colloquially become known as the queue, there was for some, and I don't think I'm being overly dramatic here, but what has been described as a semi-spiritual effect, and it seemed to transcend all age groups, all demographics, all beliefs, even approaches to monarchy. I think above everything, it was a truly human experience. A people-watching event unlike many or indeed any. So thank you for the pictures that you sent in from your experience, and I will pop them on the show page today. I suppose if I had a regret from the last few weeks, I've spent a lot of time watching the news, listening to the news, reading, but I didn't join the queue, and I think a lot of people will think, should I have been in the queue, or at least like you have watched the queue or been a part of it. David Beckham, he joined the queue, and what did he queue for? Was it 12 hours? Was it 8 or was it 12? It was a lot of hours. That said a lot about David Beckham, I think, that he joined the queue and he was a part of the queue with I'll do this with my air quotes. Can you see them? Yes, Neil. Normal, regular, everyday people from all across the globe, I might add. There was David Beckham with his flat cap on, waiting in the queue. It was extraordinary. Well, no, it wasn't extraordinary for Beckham, was it? That's David Beckham, really. But that queue, those pictures, and the pictures that you've taken, your experience, they're fabulous. Well done, and thank you so much for sending them in. So yes, it was episode 335, that shorter episode on the day of the funeral, and it did feature Rankin talking about his experience photographing the Queen. Let me, as we do, play a few more inspirational words from Rankin. Not the moments from the interview, or rather the photo shoot with the Queen, but moments from Rankin talking about photography and the importance of photography in his life from earlier on this year.
I'm a natural contrarian, and what I mean by that is I'm a natural kind of Glaswegian child. My parents were both Glaswegian. Yeah. I'm a Ouija. My dad said to me when I was very young, in England, it was actually when we moved to England, and I think I'd met some kids and they were very, very confident and arrogant. And my dad said, in England, they send kids to school to be arrogant and have confidence. In Glasgow, you're born with that. And I don't know how true that is, apart from most of the Glaswegians I've met are real contrarians, and most of the Scottish people I've met are pretty contrarian as well. So I think I was just naturally, when I was growing up, was encouraged to just ask questions and never take the easy option of an answer. And it's just, I just got that from my parents, and that makes me kind of question things that maybe certain taboos or, let's say things that make people uncomfortable. I've always wanted to question them, but I always really admire Damien Hirst and Banksy for their ability to really kind of conceptualize stuff that makes you think in a certain way. And I think that what makes both of their art really interesting is they make you feel something, but they make you think something. So I've always, right from the beginning, before I knew these artists, I've always tried to do that with the work. So I've always tried to have that duality within it. I learned that very, very early on at college. And I think that's what a kind of cultural provocateur is. It's like they're just a person kind of going, but why not? Yeah. Why can't I do this? What is making society think in this way, or all think in this way, when it's really obvious to me why? Like, it's me asking, why does every single cover of a fashion magazine have to have this very homogenous look? I just don't understand it. So, and that led to us doing lots of really interesting covers at Days, and putting very unique people on that possibly wouldn't have been on before. So, I think that's what a cultural provocateur is, and also I think the thing that connects a lot of really great art and really great photography is the consideration of an audience. So we would always talk about making the magazine, or me making work for myself, but we don't discount the audience. And what I mean by that is we don't just create it in an ivory tower for ourselves. We're thinking and looking at it as if we're an audience, and what does the audience want, and having that conversation, because a great piece of work can have a conversation with you. It can make you question yourself. It can make you walk away and be thinking about something for a few hours or a few days or weeks or years. And I think that combination is what we've always gone for. I always go for, and I think that's what makes us those types of creatives. And also I've got a real belief that it takes all sorts to make great work, and my way is not the best way. My way is my way. My way is the way that I like to do it, and I love hearing other people's ways, because I think having a kind of round table approach to work and having different voices and people questioning you and you questioning yourself is really important all the time.
I think there must be vines ahead of me. I'm not sure. Are they? Again, we've got this wonderful countryside all around me. I seem to be able to just... from what I can find, there's no official footpaths. The only thing that's worrying me slightly is behind me, I can hear a dog, quite an anxious dog, getting closer and closer. I don't mind dogs, I love dogs, you know that. And I'm missing my Barney terribly, I really am. So bark a lot, missing you, love. But loose dogs, there's quite a lot of hunting dogs around here. It's hunting season, and apparently there's a few that locally that are missing, that they're looking for. Maybe that's one of them. I'm coming back with an extra dog, hopefully not hanging off my leg. Let's get a picture of this. This is just into the valley here. A few. Well, are they vineyards? The wind's getting up. I don't know whether you can hear it. Here we go. Shutter speed 210 f5. There we go. The rain's gone away, which is a good thing. For the moment, Neil, the rain's gone away. Send your pictures, your stories, please, to stories@photowalk.show, 2,000 pixels wide with your pictures. And if you're sending, of course, as I say, by smartphone, your smartphone pictures, then just send those best quality out of whatever flavour of smartphone you use. My thanks to our extra milers, those who go the extra Photowalk mile to support this show for the price of a cup of high street coffee or a roll of HP5 black and white film a month, or an annual basis, of course, because you can now join on an annual basis as well. You're quite frankly and honestly and I mean this, the engine room that drives this show. Without you and the growing support, honestly, there would be no Photowalk. And to support the show and become an extra miler, as we call you, just go to the photowalk.show website, click the orange button that says support the show, and then enjoy the extra Weekend Diary episode, which we call The Extra Mile, funnily enough. The replay unplugged interview shows, plus once a month, of course, our Zoom get-together. The next one, if you're listening to this on the date intended, is this coming Tuesday, and I look forward to you being there. We show a few pictures, we chat about making pictures, and it's just really easy, and you don't have to bring pictures. Many people just come along, listen and watch. They draw up a chair, pull up a cup of their favourite poison, and that's good enough. I love you to meet our extra milers, so this week let me introduce you via letter to extra miler Rob Merkestein. Hi Neil, here are some pictures I took on a Friday photo walk in the woods a little while back, and Rob, they are frankly stunning, with a capital F for fabulous. In order, says Rob, to be at my destination to make these pictures around sunrise, being present at the train station at a time otherwise deemed usual for sleeping was necessary, since to get my photographic visual prize, a 1.5 hour train journey awaited me. To explain, the main railway company in these parts of the Netherlands has a section on its website in which itineraries for 45 walks are there. They're walks that you can take as you step off the train, leading from one station to another. That's fabulous. That really is. Your railway companies in your country do guided walks from the railway stations. That is service for the soul. Both the soul of your spirit and the sole of your walking boot. Genius, Netherlands Lands Railway people. Absolute genius. I shall put the link Rob followed from his railway station on the show notes. It's in Dutch, but if you're using Chrome, clever gnomes underneath the hood turn everything into English for you. Either that, or I'm suddenly talking the language without even knowing it. So thank you for that. Anyway, says Rob, upon arrival, I lost track of the signs that were to guide me along the route, and instead I found myself chasing light and colours and shapes rather than signs. When checking the time after several hours, a personal record of sorts appeared to have been set, having covered only 4 miles in the same number of hours. But that means, doesn't it, that you're having a lot of fun. Oh, hang on, let me get this photograph. We've got this really, really moody cloud. There was me saying it's not raining. And there's I just noticed it because I could hear a plane, and I looked to my left, and I think that's a plane coming out of Carcassonne. But I noticed it because it was breaking through these really angry clouds. Stop talking, Neil, because there's just a little bit of land that's got this shaft of light coming onto it. I've got the wrong lens, really. It's equivalent 28 millimeters full frame. But look, I'll get it. It may work, it may not. 1600 ISO. I've underexposed by a stop, F5. Oh, look at that. Just shafts of light. Boof. Lighting up just one part of... That might even be a small fortified town that it's lighting up. Oh, wonderful. Where were we? Oh, yeah. 4 miles, same amount of hours. All in all, the light did not disappoint, and the walk was enjoyable as well, albeit a tad short in terms of distance. What got me thinking, though, was a brief chat with somebody passing by. Instead of the usual, "What are you taking a picture of?" She asked, "What are you planning on doing with your photographs?" Excellent question, though not one I was prepared for in the moment. The sheer joy of being outside, really, observing and capturing whatever jumps out or fascinates you, be it an attempt to visualize an atmosphere, I suppose like a misty morning, do you mean by that, or trying to apply a more abstract approach, and I suppose by that you mean something like intentional camera movement. It's usually fulfilling enough. My response to her was a fairly obligatory one. "Oh, I post shots online, do some prints maybe." She smiled and all was well and good, but the image-orientated bubble that I hitherto found myself in was Pops, and the void it left was rapidly filling with questions. How poetic are you today, Rob? What about the book with last year's images you intended to make, I said to myself. Why do you regularly go out photographing if the images just end up on a hard drive? All those sort of questions. See, it's all very well, Rob, talking about making prints and books and things that have a real tangible feel. The next part of the challenge is to actually go and do it, isn't it? So our work doesn't end up just sitting in a cupboard collecting, I suppose, digital dust. Rob finishes by saying, whilst working my way back through the 2020 digital archives of your show, Neil, I re-listened to episode number 40, which featured Dan Milner, and I must say his enthusiasm for creating one-of-a-kind photo books has been highly inspirational. And it looks, reading between the lines here, that Rob is about to start printing more. He's about to engage with more printed material and bring his pictures, such as the ones he's talking about here, ones that I'll share on the show page, to bring them alive as prints. And Rob, while we're about it, any one of these images I'm happy to post on the show page. I'm going to put a collection up. What a fabulous collection. And I'm very proud to have you as one of our extra milers. Highlights for me, and you can see these on the show page, the portrait shaped, I don't want to say shaped, what do I mean? Orientated, thank you, photograph along the path, the towering trees. And there's some, I keep meaning to find, and I will find an avenue. I've been seeing them while we've been driving, but as I walk in the countryside, I haven't seen another one. But the avenues of trees that are very French that you drive through. I'm not quite sure whether in the UK, I mean, we do have avenues of trees, but certainly not in the number that I see here in France. I'm not quite sure that somebody from health and safety wouldn't have tried to remove them, because they sit right next to where you're driving. Sometimes 20, 30 trees in a row each side. I mean, they're a wonderful sight, and as I say, so very, very French. But they reminded me of your picture reminds me of them. The towering trees enveloping a lonely walker. He's just walking along the path. Fantastic. And off the beaten path, if you will, though a picture that made me feel a real sense of quiet and complete solitude amongst these mature, fabulously coloured trees. What feel like, quite lonely moments for you. I mean, I can really hear the quiet in your pictures. Please, please, please go to the show page today. I'm not sure if I'm making a hash brown of describing these, but really I can feel the solitude, the quiet, the moment that you had in that forest alone with your pictures. I really can. And I tell you what, I'll go further still. I can imagine them printed out in a gallery in a very dark room, spotlit from above, like a show I saw, funnily enough, here in France last week. I love the way that looked, but then I can hear a recording that you've made in my mind. It's or in my ears, or in my imagination. It's a recording made from within the understory, perhaps, of the trees as they make their noise in the forest. Oh, Neil, come on. You're getting far too poetic with it. But I want to play two inspirational clips, actually, because that's what this has inspired me to do. I'll move on quickly. Following your experience making these pictures, Rob, and I do think what a marvellous idea that your train companies in the Netherlands give you routes that you can take when you step off a train to go and enjoy the countryside. Oh, just brilliant. The first of these inspirational clips comes from Daniel Milner from Blurb Books, from that very early episode that you were talking about when he was discussing the printed image. And then, you might have guessed, come on, who do you think? Would it be Simon Baxter, Neil? Oh, you read my mind. You're good, you are. Yes, woodland photographer Simon Baxter, who, like you, Rob, shares a fascination for finding the quiet amongst the trees and woodland. So here's Daniel Milner first, and then Simon Baxter.
I've seen success at Blurb where people had an audience of people that came in and they printed a book and it sold out immediately. But they're, how-to books, self-help books, workout books, etc. Photo and art books are much more challenging, but there are so many ways to get from A to B. And one of the things that people don't realize, or maybe it would be better if they realized a little bit more, is the great thing about print on demand is you can be hyper personal in what you put out. You can do 10 copies of a book with the same guts, but the cover is different on each book. And each book is destined for a single person or a single client or a single, with a print tipped in. There's so many ways of customizing and also just printing stuff that traditional publishers would never print and could never print. So I think looking at Blurb or any other platform like Blurb, you've got to look at it with fresh eyes. If you're coming with eyes that are from 1975 and saying the only way that I'm going to be relevant is if I, get a traditional publishing deal, which is a great thing to get if you can get it and the numbers are right. But there's so much more on how these books can be done. And I mean, I can tell you personal stories of doing books and sort of turning the traditional model on its head on purpose, and then watching how doing so has made the book more successful. It's making a book and saying, I'm only going to make 10 copies. Photography is a reproducible medium. Publishing is a reproducible medium. And then all of a sudden you're saying, okay, I'm only going to make 10 copies. I have a whole series of books that are only editions of one.
Right.
Editions of one. I did an entire project. So spent however long it took to do that project. In some cases it was a few months. In some cases it was a few years. And then made a single copy of the book and said there's never going to be any more. And it's a blast because when you accumulate 10 or 15 of those, suddenly the collective of those books take on a whole different life. And I've had museum curators come up and say, we want all those books in our collection. And I'm like, no, these are just little things I'm playing around. No, these are conceptual art books. We want these in our collection. And it's, I still catch myself thinking too routinely, thinking too small, thinking too unoriginal. Like, what else can I do with this? I mean, there are my head is spinning right now thinking about things, techniques on how you can use these books in ways that most people don't think about. I'll just give you one quick example. I had a conference with a photographer that's working for an NGO recently, and they were talking about what kind of book or magazine they were doing. And I said, well, why don't you just leave about 20 pages in the back of the magazine lined and give them to the people in your photographs, and then have them write about what they feel like being inside the project. The project is about them. Has anybody asked them what it felt like to be in the project? Well, give them a copy, but leave the back 20 pages lined, then tear those pages out, scan them, and add them into the next iteration of whatever it is you're doing.
I think that's where the deep sense of satisfaction comes from. Having spent time in woodland, discovering that through a process of trying to manage chronic pain, and that realization that spending time in woodland offered a type of genuine distraction that nowhere else offered. So photographing the wider landscape was great, but it wasn't distracting. Whereas woodland is incredibly complex. There's lots of different forms of stimulus in terms of sight, smell, sound, but that's constantly shifting. So with every single step forward or step to the side, visually, aesthetically, everything's shifting all the time. It's chaotic. There's a lot to consume. So to try and make sense of that with the camera is quite a task, really. So it needs your undivided attention. So your thought processes start to shift away from the stresses of everyday life, away from pain. When something has such a profound effect and a positive impact upon your life, you become very emotionally invested into it. So it develops into an empathy for the places that you photograph. And that empathy then inspires you to learn, because you care about the trees, you care about the woodland because of the impact they've had on you. They're in tandem. You're learning how to make sense of it photographically, but what helps to inform those decisions is learning about the trees, learning about that space, what it means, why does that tree, why is it formed in that way? What ecological significance does it have? Why is that stuff growing in the understory? What does that mean? And it's just incredibly rewarding and inspires you to go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Simon Baxter's sincere love of the forest there and making pictures within it. Before that, my conversation with Blurb Books ambassador Daniel Milner. I suppose a symbiotic relationship of sorts with trees when it comes to the very organism that one day trades its life as a tree for life as the pages within that precious and tangible vessel for our work, the book. Meanwhile, back in Fanjeaux, in the south of France. I've met quite a few expats in my week of being in France, and certainly I've known David longer than any of those, so you seem the appropriate person to ask what living in France brings to you.
Oh, that's a very big question. I think initially it was a chance to do something different with a better climate and potentially a better quality of life, simply because of the affordable availability of so many things around us in the countryside here. But the longer we've stayed and made periodic trips to other parts of both Europe and the UK, the more we've come to appreciate the fact that we don't ever really sit in traffic jams.
No.
And that we don't really queue for anything, and that I can get a doctor's appointment within 2 or 3 days. I can pop into a hospital if I need something more urgent the same day. And if we needed a consultant, normally I could see someone within, if it was urgent, right away, and if otherwise, maybe within a couple of weeks. So that availability of support, as well as the kind of the environment of southern France, the open spaces, the big skies, the Mediterranean an hour in one direction, the Pyrenees an hour in the other direction, has meant that we've very quickly got comfortable here and feel very settled. When I had to reflect on retirement or what I was going to do, it was absolutely clear that whatever happened, I wasn't going to be leaving this part of France or even the village that we've come to love and live in for the last 20 years.
Fanjeaux is this village, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And you've made friends here, English and French, mainly French.
Yes, and Belgian and Dutch.
Yeah.
So there's a little international community here in southern France, as there are in many bits of France, and it does make for some interesting conversations around the dinner table, and also a chance to draw on other people's experiences, and that enriches it.
It's not a part of Little England, though, is it?
No. You can be excited when someone offers fish and chips. It doesn't happen very often. No, it isn't a part of Little England at all. And in fact, we don't really congregate as a British community, at least I don't congregate as part of a British community really very often, although I have friends who are British and we get together in 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. But that sense of expatriate community that you might see, say, in the Middle East, which I am familiar with, or Spain, no, we don't have that here.
I hate to bring up the B word, and I'm not talking about Britain, I'm talking about Brexit. What has that brought to you, or have you not really noticed a difference because you are now essentially French? I
think we've been quite lucky. I haven't particularly noticed the difference. Yes, as a resident, I don't get my passport stamped, but I do get it checked. But you did anyway. They always look to make sure you had a passport as you cross the border going into the UK or coming into France. And I think some things got a bit tricky to start with. You suddenly realise your Amazon account wouldn't work the way it used to, and Netflix and the same. But basically, it's all available on the French side anyway. Yeah. It's encouraged me to watch more French language films and things because they're only available with dubbed French or in French.
I've not encountered one iota of criticism for living in France from the expatriates that I've talked to over the last week. I can't think of one thing that has been said to me where they said, "Oh, do you know what? If only I was living in Britain, I'd get X."
Oh yeah, no, I don't feel there's anything to get. But if I had anything to say, I would say is if you're coming to somewhere like France, you have to really be prepared for the level of bureaucracy you're going to encounter in anything you do. And there are people that always travel, not just with their passport, but their birth certificate, their marriage certificate, copies of electricity bills to prove where they live, photographs, because you never know when someone's going to say on a very simple transaction, I need to see. And invariably you won't have one of the documents they want. So that is quite challenging, but it's not every day, it's not even every month, but 2 or 3 times a year you come up against something that you have to kind of work your way through. Now, I've been lucky. My French is good enough to read it in French and more or less understand what's required. But I guess if you come without that familiarity with French, then some of these things without help would look like a real challenge. They're not, they're just irritating.
Could you be tempted to move back to the UK?
No.
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 Do you want to think about that?
No. I can't see any advantage other than being really close to my children and my grandchildren, which would be lovely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But at the risk of putting them off, they do come and spend a lot of time with me here because they love being in France. So I'm not sure that I don't win, in that maybe I don't see them regularly, but when I do see them, they stay for 1, 2 or 3 weeks. And we have a lot more fun on that basis.
One thing we haven't done of late, which I shall put correct now, put correct. What's happening to your English, Neil? Never mind your French. Is stuff from our Facebook group, the Book of Face. We have a Facebook group for the Photowalk, and it's, I like to think, a really safe place to hang out, to spend time with like-minded photographers, and not necessarily, of course, photographing the same kind of interest or genre as you, but a place where you can ask questions without somebody saying, "Oh, don't you know that?" Yes, we're very sharp on stuff like that. Also, if you join the group and you post pictures, we like you to maybe tell us a bit about the photograph that you've made, the story behind it. Not necessarily an essay, just a few words, a few more words than usual, to help us understand your thinking behind what you're photographing, rather than that sort of mic drop thing where you pop in, leave a picture, run off. So, who do we start with? Lynn Fraser. Lynn, I'm sorry to hear you've not been feeling so well of late. I've been decidedly under the weather for the last week or so, but I have a photo project to get images for with a rapidly approaching deadline. So, dragged myself out this afternoon. Do you know, this is supposed to be something we do, Lynn, to take away the stress. Don't add it in with a deadline. Having said that, I love my photo walk that I do and share with you here. But yes, I'm acutely aware it has a deadline attached. So I'm doing the same thing, Lynn. But it wasn't so much a photo walk as a stagger along the shingle for a few hundred yards to see the Mermaid of the North for the first time. She's only been there 15 years. 15 years, Lynn. Has she rusted? Anyway, she sits on a large rock named Clachdub. I hope I've got that right. The Black Rock in Gaelic in the seaboard village of Ballintor, and finds her origins in Easter Ross folklore. Now, I'm glad I picked up this post of yours, not only because the picture is fantastic, but equally because I wanted to share a podcast that I've been listening to the last few days as I've been doing my mammoth drives. I've been on really long drives. I know, I felt every hill, car. Don't join in, not yet. And Lore, L-O-R-E, Lore is one of the podcasts I've been listening to. And I love it because it's about folklore, and I'm really into folklore stories. And some of them are English stories. You get the fairies of the woods, for example, and the evil side behind them. You get real crime stories from America. It's sort of folklore, crime folklore. It's a real mixture, really well done. It has a host who has one of these sort of sing-songy sounding names that I just can't remember. Because you get this, I'm and I don't know, I've listened to 5 or 6 in the last couple of days alone while driving around. I still haven't got his name. Anyway, Lore, the podcast is called Lore. Check it out, as the youth say. Anyway, to return to Lynn's post, it's said, while we're talking about folklore, a local fisherman stole a beautiful mermaid to be his wife, and the mermaid is what's sitting on the large rock. That's what we're talking about here, the picture that Lynn made. Hiding her tail so she couldn't escape back to the sea. It was charming. Years later, after bearing his children, she found her tail and went back to sea, returning regularly to the shore to bring fish for her hungry children. See, there we are. That's the folklore story. And thank you for the picture. You'll have to go and see the picture in the Facebook group. Robert Savoy is next. Sunday photo walk and roll for me, he said, at the Parc de la Visitation in Montreal. See, I'm keeping the French rolling in some ways. Great blue heron fishing in the pond early in the morning. The place was deserted and my subject flew away, realising that I was observing him. It's not his regular spot, and I was surprised. I tried to be as quiet as possible, but the great heron is very shy and elusive. Now, I saw a heron. I'm not sure if it was a great heron, but I saw a heron fishing in the carp pond. I wasn't sure whether to tell the staff. At a lovely venue I was photographing at, it would have been last month, mid-month. But he was very tame. Let me walk around the pond, pretty much, I don't know, no further than 5 or 6, maybe a few more meters. So I had to step back with my 85mm. There was no need for a long lens because he was just there. It was almost like, come on then, get the picture, go all around, get me best side. And I actually saw just 2-3 days ago by the salt plains near the coast. Can't remember the name of the salt plains. Very French-sounding salt plain, obviously. I saw flamingo, pink flamingo, which is very unusual. You don't see those in the UK, do you? Well, I've certainly never seen them in the wilds, but pink flamingo is what I spied. Couldn't get a picture because I was driving by at that stage, but there they were, glistening in the afternoon sun, so they were. And then Alan Beach. So thank you for your pictures, Robert. Alan Beach. Also, his picture is in the Facebook group. Go look him up, Beech. Now, he usually shoots landscapes, and he shoots them amazingly as well. I've eulogised about Alan's landscape work much in the past. Anyway, he took a flask and allowed Garibaldi biscuits to a hide. Now, if you don't know what a hide is, a bird hide, I'm sure you do, but for my other listener, it's a large wooden hut with a small opening which you poke your binoculars out of, or your telescope, or your camera. And I used to visit these a lot with my mum and dad because they were members of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the RSPB, and so we spent a lot of time in hides. Me being I think I probably would have gone through my single-digit years all the way into my teens, and I'm sure I wasn't the most patient. Remember, these are days long before somebody could say, have an iPad and a pair of iPods or whatever, and be quiet, son. No, these were days where you joined in with the peace and the quiet. And all I remember is Dad shushing me, and we talked about this before, probably in the last couple of weeks, I think. And he used to shush me. Shush, shush, there's a kingfisher, shush. And then Mum usually would break open the snacks, get some crisps. That would upset Dad even more. Shush, Wendy. John, I need some crisps. No, shush, there's a kingfisher. It was always a kingfisher. Don't think we ever saw this kingfisher, but it was always a kingfisher. There's a kingfisher. Really? Where, John? Shush. Anyway. So Alan Beach has been in a hide. Now, he is usually, as I say, a landscape photographer, but he's got a picture of an egret from this morning's photo walk. A view from the Avalon Hide at RSPB Ham Wall Nature Reserve in Somerset. You have to say it like that. Somerset. Testing my new 150 to 600mm lens. Thought I'd see if I got the patience for some nature photography. Must admit, I felt like a bit of an imposter in the hide amongst all the birders, discussing all their sightings of birds I'd certainly never heard of. It's an incredible picture, amazing reflection, really is. And I've got to say, Alan, that your pictures, now I know you're not usually shooting birds, but it's got the same kind of feel. It's got that wonderful quiet, that wonderful peace and quiet that all your photographs have. That's what I felt about this this picture of yours. So, you are a bird photographer as much as you are a landscape photographer. Beautiful picture. Go and see it in the Facebook group, please. And actually, Melinda Wheeler commented on the picture. I was looking at the comments below it, which you can see in the Facebook group. Lovely, she said. I'm an amateur photographer first with a keen interest in birds. I've been on a few expeditions where birding was the primary focus, and I've always felt like an imposter myself. But you don't have to be an avid birder to see the beauty and symmetry in compositions like this. Wholeheartedly agree with you, Melinda. I've also discovered, she says, that photography gives us the patience and eye to spot birds. Thanks for your perseverance and sharing with us. I'll echo that. Twice echoed. Echo. And then Ollie Angel is in. Now, get ready for this, because I'm not sure that you've heard of this place. I certainly hadn't. Hang on, Neil. I'm well-travelled. I'll know it. Well, let's test you then. First ever post to come into the show from Nakhchivan. Of course, I've got to put land after it, because we always do that on this podcast. For reasons I really... Oh, yes, I can remember. It started in Denmark land, didn't it? But Nakhchivan land is almost a song. Nakhchivan. You can go and look it up on the world map, but it's a first to me. Last week, says Ollie, I visited Nakhchivan, an enclave, or is it exclave, wedged in between Iran and Armenia. See, there we go. Learn something every day. The Alinjagala fortress was built along the Silk Route to protect the area. Alinjagala is an impregnable fortress standing at 1,700 metres, that's 5,600 feet, up in the air. Well, not literally in the air, hanging there in the air, that would be strange. Up a mountain. You have to climb close to 1,500 stairs and 3 layers of defence. The fort had 600 men under arms defending the area and survived 14 years of siege. I'm sure it did. I'm not sure any army would want to go out there. Do you fancy going out there and claiming that one back for us? No, thanks, not today. I've got my hair to wash, if it's all the same with you. This is the Silk Road answer to Machu Picchu. I'm sure it is. The picture's on the Book of Face on our group. The Photowalk is the group, which you can join. Bring photos, a good story, packet of Garibaldis for the journey, because some clearly take longer than others, especially if you're climbing 5,600 feet. But thank you for your stories this week that you've been sharing in the Facebook group. Very, very, very much appreciate it. And if you'd like to join us, I think we've got about 1,600, 1,700 members now. So there's plenty of room at the table for you. There really is. The Photowalk podcast of a Friday, not always from a country that's not the UK, which is where I live. No, that we could. That would be marvellous, wouldn't it? This week France, next week Spain, week after Mexico, week after that. Oh, you know, you get the idea by now. Australia would take me a long time to get around. I've got so many places I want to see in Australia and America. Yeah, I'd always be on the road. Not quite sure that Sam and the boys would be pleased, or maybe they would. I don't know. I've missed Barney. I'd miss them as well, clearly. But Sir Barkalot, I'm looking forward to him being back on the Photowalk with me next week. Me and the Barnes and I. So letters. Yes, let's have a couple of quick fires, then a longer one. Seemed you like the chat about Vero last week with the CEO, Eamon Hariri, though some remain a little bit unsure. For balance, 2 from opposing sides of the fence. Andrew Hardacre from Hong Kong. Oh, see, that's a place. I'd love to go and do a photo walk in Hong Kong. I see Andrew's stuff and I think, oh, fantastic. It's a bit tricky to get into Hong Kong at the moment. I think they're still going through oh no, actually it has opened up a bit, hasn't it, Andrew? I'm speaking as if you can answer me now. Yes, it has, Neil. Anyway, controversial opinion, number 538, says Andrew. Have you done 537 before this? We don't need more social media, Neil. We need less. I listened to the Vero CEO, desperately hoping to be inspired and convinced. I wasn't. Maybe it's me, but I'm so disillusioned with social media. I find myself less and less engaged. If I do post, it's almost a reflex action because I feel it's expected, but I don't really know why I do it. I stay because there are a few people I want to engage with, but I'm not convinced it's doing me good. And that, I think, is the salient point. Whether it's Vero or Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or insert any other number of social platforms here. But yes, it's whether it's doing you good. And then from Bethan Allkirk, enjoyed hearing about Vero on the show. Did you try to speak with Instagram as well? That could make an interesting conversational piece. Well, Bethan, I did drop an email, yes, but received nothing back, and I've sent it a couple of times. I will keep trying because Instagram is a conversation I want to talking about Instagram with somebody from Instagram is a conversation I'd certainly like to try and achieve, but no, nothing back. So it was great to talk with Vero, wasn't it? I haven't joined it yet, but I was really impressed, says Bethan, by the platform's boss. It sounds to me like social with a conscience, which is much needed. I have 2 youngish daughters, 9 and 12 respectively, and I haven't let them anywhere near Instagram or Facebook for that matter. But this seems a much safer ground. And there are more letters and thoughts, direct messages even, on the Vero front. I have no doubt we'll be talking more about it in the weeks and months to come. Now, one of the most wonderful things about our time we spend together walking and making pictures is to find out where you are in the world, as you've gathered when I was looking into the Book of Face just a short while ago. And here's one from our good friend Bob Demers. Hi Neil, my partner Robin and I have finally settled into a new home. Aha, welcome home, Bob. A tidy little 500 square foot adobe cottage. It was once a livery for a local quarry, then a silversmith's studio. I'm hoping an upcoming renovation will reveal a long-forgotten crucible of silver. Blimey, Bob, don't settle for that as an archaeological find. Go big. Settle for nothing less than the silver holy grail, that's what I say. Although I did think Adobe cottage. Have they gone into building as well as Photoshop and Lightroom now? So yes, I did have to go and look up an Adobe cottage because I'm sorry, I hadn't heard of one before. It's all an education this week. Adobe, Spanish pronunciation. It's a building material made from earth and organic materials. Adobe is Spanish for mud brick. In some English-speaking regions of Spanish heritage, such as the southwestern United States, the term is used to refer to any kind of earthen construction or earth cladding. Adobe is among the earliest building materials and is used throughout the world. So I didn't know anything about it, now I do. You learn something every day. After 3 months, says Bob, I'm finally getting back to my old routine of photo walking the neighbourhood with our little red heeler, Lucy. Our neighbourhood is called Barrio Sin Nombre, which means nameless neighbourhood, in the Menlo Park districts. Bob, the education just simply keeps flowing. This is Spanish lessons as well. Our little home, says Bob, sits at the base of Sentinel Peak, the birthplace of Toussaint. The area is one of the oldest continually cultivated lands in the United States, going back 4,000 years to the Hook'em Indians that settled here and farmed agave. Is it agave or agave? So I've found 2 pronunciations of this. And agave is a sweet nectar that comes out of the fleshy leaves of it's a cactus-looking plant, isn't it? Poisonous though when raw. So Bob, don't go chewing on it. Beautifully sweet. When baked and made into syrup. Sentinel Peak, he says, is also known as A Mountain. You guessed it, because of that big A on the east side of the mountain. The stone A was started by University of Arizona students in 1915. Took them a year to do. So there we go. So much for the history lesson, he says. There's been everything this week: cookery, history, French, Spanish. Now that daytime temperatures are below 100 Fahrenheit, and I can actually go for a walk with Lucy when I get home from work. I hook up with Lucy, head out with my trusty, and I might add, award-winning now Fujifilm X-T2. Thank you very much, MPB, Hall of Fame 22 classic camera winner. Oh, we've even linked it up with MPB there, Bob. I travel light with just the XF 23mm f2 and a spare battery. Well, that is light, isn't it? These images are from the last 2 walkabouts. We're on the tail end of a prolific monsoon system or season, which has spawned an unusual and annoying mosquito population. Oh, I feel your pain. Reference a couple of weeks back when we had the midges of the lochs. It was Loch Marie in particular from the Photowalk. Although I was more than happy to take a few bitettes from them to get to get a view of that wonderful place, that wonderful loch, the Loch Marie, which was, I think, much more attractive than Loch Ness. Are we allowed to say that? So yes, the images for the last 2 walkabouts. The rain changes everything in the desert, says Bob. Back to the script. Sorry, I was digressing. All sorts of wee beasts come to life in these transient ponds, from tiny tadpoles to minuscule shrimp. Oh, it's like it's a wildlife walkabout as well. I'll leave you with this thought by author Craig Childs in his book, The Secret Knowledge of Water. There are 2 easy ways to die in this desert: thirst and drowning. Heavens. Cheers, Rob Demers. Pictures will be on the show page. Thank you for this postcard of your place too. As I say, we'll pop them up so that you can enjoy them as well and see where Bob's taking his walks, along with all the wildlife that he's no doubt collecting in his clothing. In the meantime, and rewinding back to the Vero conversation of a moment ago, let's revisit Eamon's appearance on the programme last week and the arrival of, or if you like, the re-arrival of a picture-sharing platform called Vero.
We were actually inspired by Instagram. Instagram was a very simple app that you could only post a picture, a post. Yeah. There was no video. And they had gone with the square, as much as to my dismay as somebody who likes to take photographs. Wasn't too much into the whole only a square, but you had to respect them for the simplicity that they were going after. But Instagram or any other app, we felt like there was more to be done where the user is put first. If you recall, the difficulty people had setting up their privacy settings or things like that. We wanted to make an alternative that was easier to use, that was serving the user, make them feel that they are entering an app that is useful to them and inspiring to them. That was really the most important part for us, is how to build that kind of an app. It's an app where you can be social with people that care about the same things you care about. Yeah. So my advice to people is you need to get out of the mindset of a lean back approach, which is you post and you lean back. And we've gotten used to a little bit of the emperor's clothes. We don't know what follows, comments, likes our content on these other platforms. On Vero, we don't have bots. We're not doing any of that stuff because we want you to own that experience and enjoy even the few comments that you get and know that it's coming from a real person.
Please ensure that your handbrake is on and that your vehicle is in first gear or park. For your safety and comfort, we recommend that you stay with your vehicle. Do not stand or walk between the vehicles during the crossing.
As you heard, this is a bit different. I never thought I'd be doing a Photowalk piece or link underneath the channel that is the sea. The Channel Tunnel is what I'm in at the moment, aboard Le Shuttle, running between Calais and Folkestone, sandwiched in my car carrier between a very fancy looking Porsche 911 and an equally fancy BMW. Not quite sure what that one is. You impressed, car? No. Oh, they're very moody. Are they? Okay. Anyway, as I head home, that's it for this week's show from France. I've always thought it quite strange when people travel abroad for for work that they say, oh, I didn't get a chance to get out and see the country. I was in my hotel room all the time. I've always thought that can't be the case. But this week I've shot a wedding. I've done some visiting. And I haven't really had the time to get out and do a photo walk. And I've been here a week. I know. I can see you looking at me. Stop doing that. But I get it. It's not always possible to... Well, I did make a photo walk. As you can hear, I made some photographs and some pieces for the podcast while I was there, but I didn't get to do any really long photo walks. It's just a perfect excuse to come back, isn't it? And actually do perhaps a photo retreat here. And I always feel a sense of guilt as well because I didn't speak a lot of French while I was out. I feel like I've forgotten, or maybe I'm just not as confident as I was when I was at school. So there's another reason to return. Learn some franglais. Watch some more Del Boy. If you don't know who Del Boy is, the character on Only Fools and Horses, you might have to look him up. Anyway, I heard somebody say this week that every trip out, I'm sure it was on Mally Davis's Let's Create podcast. I'm pretty sure. I have been listening to I spent a lot of time in my car. Another reason for not making a lot of photo walks this week. France is vast, with a capital V. It really is. Me and Carl, we've spent a lot of time together. But yeah, I'm sure it was Mally's show that I heard one of his guests say that every trip you make out, and even the local ones, are actually really good recce's. You're always recceing, if there's such a phrase. It's always a chance to see, it's always a chance to encounter, it's always a chance to plan. You're always, if you make pictures, you're always seeing, you're always looking, maybe for the great place to go back to when it's a sunrise or a sunset, and that plays really well into this week's PS, and we will have some play out music in a moment. With a Flav de France. Oh no, Neil, here comes your franglais Del Boy again. Yes, it will have a French flavour. But yeah, the PS this week, the postscript, is similar to the guest that I heard talking on Mally's show in some respects. It was Annie Leibovitz, not on Mally's show. This is the PS. Although I'm sure Annie would love to talk to you, Mally. Annie Leibovitz, who said, one doesn't stop seeing. One doesn't stop framing. It doesn't turn off and it doesn't turn on. It's on all the time. And I think that's the great thing about this wonderful, whether it's a pastime, a hobby, a professional thing that you do, a vocation, that's the wonderful thing about photography. Isn't that right, Del Boy?
Menère d'être, Champs-Élysées, the French say.
Sweetheart, do you wanna be mon mari? Oui, 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 ma whole vie. How hard can it be? And I'll be your mannequin, your top 10, and you'll write me a poem. Until then, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next question in the script. Comme ci, comme ça. Ouah, ouah, ouah. J'adore mes amis. Oh, how dull life would be. And I'd be a vagabond, a small fee. Together we're better. Un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq. Let's rub it back. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next question in the screen. Ba, 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 da, da. Let's rub it back. Wah, wah, wah.
a cheeky number to end today's show called Les Figures from the Devil's Sway. And that's it for this week. My thanks to Rankin, Daniel Milner, Simon Baxter, Eamon Hariri, the art duo Alexandrov Klom, David Pride, mpb.com, and those who are extra milers or patrons, which you can join through the link on the website photowalk.show, which, if you can share, I will be very grateful. That helps us a lot when you share the website or the URL for an episode, in particular across, Facebook or Twitter, that sort of thing. Tomorrow is the Extra Mile, the patrons-only episode across on our Patreon channel called The Extra Milers. And stories from my diary include, oh no, I've only gone and driven into Paris by accident, again, and they've stolen my chair, plus possibly one other. Links and further research to what you've heard will be on the show page today. You will find a handy link in your podcast player app to that. Music is from the wonderful artlist.io and now Epidemic Music. My thanks to Neil Ford for understanding how things work under the hood, technically, Emily Renier for your eyes in our Facebook group, and Andrea Gilpin for making sure Instagram and Vero is engaging. I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time. Au revoir.
The Photo Walk is a Loading Zone production.